Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on CFL Talk, joining me is David Morassutti. David, welcome to the program. How was your weekend other than the football game?
Busy. Very busy. Lots
That's,
going on.
that sounds
But
good. That sounds like a
it's
good thing.
it's getting busier because people are like, "Oh, September's coming."
Yep. Everybody's going back to school.
Oh yeah.
And then you get the old parents strolling their children towards the school and wave at them. And then you get the high fives going around all the parents because school started.
It's the way life goes. Unfortunately.
I think that pretty much tells the story. Yeah, so the Canadian Football League. That's what we talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't the Canadian Football League; it's the NFL, but it's a former Canadian Football League player, a quarterback that played for Winnipeg, was a backup quarterback, and has really, it's funny. He's done some great things in the NFL, but he keeps continually getting released, and I'm referring to Chris Streveler, who has not been officially released yet, but word is that he's been told he's going to be released.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. I'm not gonna lie because for him to make, I'm actually was trying to remember who the backup was going into the season, but he was essentially trying to make it on as the third stringer. Oh yeah, Mike White. That's right. So like he's trying to make it on as the third stringer. They have Joe Flacco still in the mix too, so it's like it was going to be tough for him to make that roster as, you know, onto that roster. Maybe he gets onto the practice squad, but from what you saw in the preseason, there could be a team that could make a call for Chris Streveler and you actually use him in a game.
So he's a Canadian Football League player who has found almost success in the NFL, and he's a quarterback.
Yeah, you know what? If you know the NFL, he is very much similar to Taysom Hill, who plays for the New Orleans Saints. They call them kind of like the gadget guy or quarterback who's not doesn't do all the throwing of the quarterback, but he's able to make plays using his legs. He will throw once in a while. Just kind of the multi-tool type of player. And there aren't many of them in the NFL that can do that. Streveler is one. I said Taysom Hill is another one. And like, you're not seeing a lot of that nowadays. And I'm wondering if some teams just really don't know how to use these guys. Like New Orleans knew how to use Taysom Hill last year. Feels like with Streveler, like he was with Arizona. He got some opportunity with Arizona, but you're seeing as he gets more time and he gets more games. I know preseason's one thing, but he seems to be getting it a little bit. He seems to understand how to be effective at the NFL level. So I'm hoping that a team gives him another shot, even if it's just third string or have him on a roster somewhere, because I think he is worthy of that. If not, there might be a CFL team that might call to see what he's up to the rest of the season.
Well, with injuries being what they are in the Canadian Football League, and for that matter in the NFL, somebody could use him. He does know, and he has done what a lot of teams need, and that is players that make big plays. And he's made some big plays. I don't understand how a guy that can make big plays like he has in the preseason, and he's done some stuff during the season, as you said, with the Cardinals. But it's just watching him and hearing him. It's like now I forgot the kicker's name. Jeepers Creepers played for the Argos.
Oh, Hiralahu.
Yeah, Hyberlahu. Same thing, right? He keeps getting released, And in fact, he gets released by Dallas, ends up back on Dallas, gets released by Dallas, gets back on Dallas. I mean, you know, it's roster moves. Be damned, because they would be on the team, or they won't be on the team because roster changes and how they fit when it comes to the roster. So these are players that I think, I'm pretty sure they're making a decent penny, because they are signing contracts, right? And they are getting money. And the money that they're getting, for the most part, I would think, you're more of an NFL expert than I am, has to do with bonuses, I think.
Yeah, like they get signing, but some get. It always tells what a team's commitment is to a player by the signing bonus they get. I'm not too sure what Strevler's signing bonus was. Like a lot of these ones, it's a little harder to find those details. But yeah, like when it comes to signing bonuses, that usually indicates where a team is likely to have you in terms of their plans going into the season. There's sometimes there's guaranteed contracts. Some of them are partially guaranteed. The NFL contracts are totally different than any other sports league, where a lot of money in the NFL they can partially guarantee, they can fully guarantee. Other leagues, what you get paid is what you get paid. There's no like you can't say in the NHL, oh, we'll just pay half your contract. Then if we decide you don't like you, we're just going to get rid of you. That's not how it is in the NFL. The NFL contracts are very, very different in that regard.
Absolutely. So we also can talk a little bit about a subject that you wanted to talk about, and that is the weekend games, the Labor Day games. We should talk about them after, but I wanted to talk about them now, because the games and the way they were played, right, and where we are now with teams. The Labor Day games now become extremely important because of what happened this past weekend in a lot of areas. With Calgary losing, all of a sudden Saskatchewan winning, right? We're starting to see some battles start. We've got Saskatchewan that doesn't want to be the crossover team. They would rather be, even though the team that they would be playing in the East would probably be not as good as one they're playing in the West. Traveling at that point in the season is really tough.
Yeah, for sure. It's always going to be tough. That's just the nature of it, my opinion.
Okay. The other thing that we wanted to talk about is just your comment on the hit on the referee in the Calgary game. I think that was the biggest hit, and I love that he's on his behind doing this.
I love the sell job was perfect. If you're gonna
That's dedication to work, baby.
oh yeah, I mean it's like it's like when a referee in hockey, he's calling a penalty and then all of a sudden gets bumped by a player. He still got the arm up. He's still keeping that arm up even if he's getting knocked
Absolutely.
down.
Absolutely. A great job by him. Okay, let's go to the football games, and we'll start with Calgary and Winnipeg. They lose 31-29. A very important game for Calgary. They wanted to keep Winnipeg in striking distance, and also ensure that they can lock second place in a home game when the playoffs start.
Yeah, this was a big game because every game between Winnipeg and Calgary has been fantastic. Must see games every week almost. They play each other quite a bit this season, and for Calgary, they're trying to establish some sort of consistency. And yeah, you're right. Now with BC losing Nathan Rourke, which hearing that he was trying to come back, and I hearing that he had an
Oh boy.
operation, hearing about other Liz Frank injuries. Sorry, guys, Nathan Rourke. I don't see him coming back this season. So for Calgary, you're like, okay, there's our opening. There's our window, or sorry, there's the door opening for it. So I do think that this is a great opportunity for Calgary. This game, though, it wasn't as much that Calgary didn't play well. It's just that Winnipeg played better, despite despite Calgary having crucial turnovers in the end zone. That
Absolutely. I mean, Meyer. or Mayer, I should say. Jake Mayer threw 3 touchdown passes, not an interception. Caleros 2 and 2, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions, and you know how much I love, you know, protecting the ball. In spite of that, they did in fact win. Um, Dembski hasn't had the biggest of seasons, right? But he was a big factor in this game.
Yeah, no, he was. He was a factor because he was used all over the place, right? He was used to do some. There was one drive in this game where Winnipeg, every single play call they made on offense, just it was like a symphony, and it led to a great long drive. Nick Dempsey got some runs. There were some passes involved in there, and it all ended up in a touchdown. It was a symphony, and then at times, Zach Claros, we know Zach Claros is one of the better. How would you call it? The best, like
He's the best playmaking quarterback in
yeah,
the league.
he's the best at. Oh, the pocket's collapsing. Okay, give me a few seconds. I'll get an opening. I'm trying to think of the word. It's not coming to me right now.
He's elusive.
Not just elusive, but he's the guy that can make something out of nothing,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like that's kind of what I see from him, right? Thinking on the fly. That is his best trait. Many quarterbacks, they get flustered. They usually don't make the plays that Zach Claros makes. But what Calgary did was they stayed disciplined when that happened. And they got 2 big interceptions out of it. The problem is they got those 2 interceptions, but they didn't really capitalize in the way I thought they should have. Because when you get 2 picks in the end zone like that, then you should you should be able to find a way to keep Winnipeg on their toes. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. Um, yeah, but it was still. I mean, it was still a fantastic game because both teams were firing on all cylinders. That's what you want to see. Literally, both quarterbacks almost identical numbers, same amount of yards. Mayer had the one extra touchdown. That's because Claros. If you think about it, if Claros didn't throw those 2 picks, those would have been two more touchdowns. So I did feel a little bit for Calgary here. I thought Calgary had that game in good shape. They just fourth quarter they could not get those touchdowns.
I love the TD reception. Was it McRae? I'm looking here to see who it was.
Greg McCrae had that
McRae, yes. He
game.
had the one that he caught off the helmet of the defender.
I don't know how he caught that.
I
That
don't know
was
how he got it.
like everyone's like, oh, great throw by Zach Claros, and I'm like, the receiver had to do a lot of work to ensure
And
that
he
that
was
was
being pass interfered with.
yeah. No, it
Flags
was,
everywhere as he's falling to the ground with the ball on his. Literally, he caught it with his stomach, is what I'm going to say. Literally.
no, it was,
He caught it with his midsection.
he did. It's one of those plays where a receiver basically has to have the most utmost concentration so that he can find the ball where it needs. Like in those situations, you can't overthink it. Know where the ball is, find a way to keep it from hitting the ground. That's all he had. That's what he did. I don't know how he managed to do it when you're jumping up and you're falling on your back. I
I have
personally,
no,
I'm
I
putting
have
him in
no
the
clue.
CFL.
Unlike you, David, I have no clue how he did that.
That's top.
I watched that thing. I had to replay it to look at it and go, how the heck did he catch that ball? And I'm looking, I'm going, how does that happen? And then the bit of, I shouldn't use the word luck on a catch like that, but I'm going to. The luck that he had is that he was horizontal and he was basically in a lying down kind of mode. And when he hit the ground, the ball hit him in the stomach and he had time to react and grab it. It was a series of good fortune for him. And of course, it, it was a great touchdown pass. I thought it was awesome.
It was a pass that I think top two. There's one other catch I think that might be just as good. It wasn't a touchdown, but and it was the same in this week as well. I think there's another one that goes against this catch, but I think yeah, definitely top top three catch of the season.
Yeah, it's what makes the game so interesting. These kinds of offensive plays that are a rarity, and it's not by Burnham. There's a couple of players that do this on a regular basis,
Mhm.
so it kind of washes a little bit the ones when other players do it. But it's a wonderful talent. It's a beauty. It's beauty. It's really is. You're talking about masterpieces. This was a masterpiece. This reception, and how Caleros. I don't know how you know how quarterbacks can make those kinds of passes.
It's you know what it's having trust in knowing where your receiver is going to be in a way, but knowing that if you put it in a certain spot, the receiver is going to get it. Um, but yeah, like just there's not many quarterbacks that are able to do it like Caleros, where he can move out of the pocket, he could be running, he could be walking side to side, and he can throw that ball 50 yards down the field. Like the
Right.
accuracy is
Yep. Amazing.
unbelievable.
And let's move on to another facet of the game that kind of surprised me a little bit. We're accustomed to seeing Winnipeg toss out, two running backs, right? Have two running backs handle the game, not just one, right? Not having a feature back, but having two guys that take turns, in Oliveira and Augustine. We've seen that all season, right? Mostly out of necessity because they don't have, Harris, a feature back, right? And
Mhm.
then you look at Calgary. Kadeem Carey is a feature back. He really is. He's an incredible running back. But they really used Peyton Logan in a very smart way, ironically, against a team like Winnipeg that likes throwing two running backs at a team.
Yeah, that's Winnipeg. Yeah, Winnipeg, and I mean Winnipeg has like six different guys that they can just throw out there on a rushing play. But yeah, because when Kadeem Carey was out, Peyton Logan was one of the two running backs that was kind of sharing the duties with the rushing game. But Peyton Logan's also a dynamic returner.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of that guy that can kind of make plays if gets open space. That's kind of his bread and butter right there.
And
He's
making players miss.
Yes, and he's getting himself available in the passing game as well. So he's turning. I'm not going to compare him completely to Chad Owens because Chad Owens was a rare talent that could not just do everything, but do everything really, really well. But Peyton Logan is of that same caliber where he can be so effective on different areas of the field.
Yeah, just like Brandon Banks. And it's
Yes.
a bit of a Swiss Army knife. Always good to have on a team.
You always need I think that's something CFL teams don't have a lot of right now.
But it's a type of player that really comes in handy.
Yeah, and I mean he's only 23 years old as well, as well. So he's definitely got a no he might not even has reached his full peak athletically. Like he could get stronger. He can there's a lot to like here if you're and Calgary keeps finding these players. That probably annoys a lot of teams. Like how they got another one? How do they find these guys?
Talk about another one. What about Malik Henry?
Yeah, yeah. When we think about Calgary, we think about Kabar Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Bagleton. Oh wait, there's this guy named Malik Henry who's now turned into their top receiving threat.
Yep.
He was doing well even when Bo Levi Mitchell was the quarterback, but now with Jake Mayer there, I think this is only going to take to the next level.
It sure will. It's something that well, Calgary's notorious for it. I mean, it's like we're a broken record when we talk about next man up. Calgary over the past 10 years under their general manager and their coach, because it takes two, right? It takes a guy to find talent that the head coach can insert in the lineup, or at least prepare the player to get in the lineup. And when they get in the lineup, they know what their responsibility is, and they've been identified as players that can do what they're asked to do, because that's the key in football. It's talent is fantastic. It's probably the most important thing. talent is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's also that symbiotic relationship between the GM that brings a player to a coach and a coach when he teaches a player to execute. And Calgary does that probably better than any team. Winnipeg is very close to that. Hamilton until this year was very close to that. We're seeing, other teams that are doing that and bringing players along that are becoming extremely talented. We see that here in Toronto, with a couple of receivers, and we're talking Canadians too that are, very proficient in, leading the league for that matter, and as a Canadian receiver, one of our favorite guys to talk to at Argos games. Um, so this game finishes 31-29. Hamilton, Calgary, just they came so close, but that little bit extra that Winnipeg seems to do every game. They just find that how is it they find a way to do just that little bit? They do that little bit extra, and it ends up winning them the game.
I think part of that has to do with the coaching. I think Mike O'Shea just has that team in the right headspace to in those tight moments. Um, I mean, every game they've been in it, even the one they lost to Montreal, like they were a field goal away from winning that game, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. I think a lot of it just has to do with continuity, with the coaching staff, with just everything that they do. There's like Winnipeg, just it's a well oiled machine right now, and there's
It's
only one thing that I think that's keeping that thing from falling apart, and that's the quarterback.
Wow, he's a key component. I mean, we know how good Colaros is. I mean, you know, Calgary is the prime example of a team that has a quarterback, and I say this with only respect, a quarterback in decline, a star quarterback in decline, and they seem to have a guy. He Mayer did a great job, and he looks like a starting quarterback. He doesn't look any different, or does he? I'll ask you. He doesn't look any different than Arbuckle did a few years ago.
Um, no, I think there's some parallels you can draw there, for sure.
Not everything about him, but you,
No,
you know what I mean. Like, this is the thing about Calgary again. And what I'm talking about is bringing in players who have a level of ability, a coaching staff that coaches them up to the point where they can execute what the team needs them to do. And this quarterback did what this team needed him to do, and he did it. And he looked good doing it.
I think what people also have to remember here, when Bo Levi Mitchell went down last year, a lot of people thought, "Oh, it's Michael O'Connor's turn."
Yep.
Wait, sorry, Michael O'Connor is not the starting quarterback. It's this guy Jake Mayer. What? And he ends up playing 11 games for them last year. Um, I think it's a luxury that Calgary has. Not a lot of teams can say, our franchise quarterback isn't playing well. Let's throw in the backup who is right now the better quarterback. Um, I think he is a very underrated quarterback. I think he knows how to use his accuracy is I think the big thing. He's very, very accurate as a quarterback, and that's a big thing for me. Quarterbacks need to be accurate, but not just on those short passes. On going with the long ball, I think he's averaging 9.7 yards per play, which is behind Nathan Rourke among quarterbacks in this league, if I'm not mistaken.
And his percentage is high, very close to where Nathan Rourke is.
Yeah, he's a 121.2 efficiency rating. Of course, this is only his second. Really, I call this his first start. He started half of the game against Toronto. So we'll see that number kind of adjust a bit, but there's only two starting quarterbacks that are over 100 in efficiency, and that's Nathan Rourke and Zach Collaros. So there's an opportunity there for a third quarterback to say, "Hey, I'm here too. Hi," and that could be Jake Mayer because I think that offense is definitely good enough.
You might have said that Fajardo was that guy at a point in time.
At one point in time, he
At a
was.
point in time, you might have said that was the guy. He hasn't been the guy this year. McLeod Bethel Thompson, if you don't watch his whole game and just look at statistics, you could say he's that guy. Um, we'll talk about him in a second, very soon, I promise. So Mayer is a great quarterback, and I wonder. I guess the last subject I'd like to raise within Calgary is this a sign of the times? Is it time for Bo Levi Mitchell? Will he, rather than become somebody? We saw this with Riley, didn't we? We saw something like this with Riley before he retired.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of similarities. You're seeing a team right now, a team that's Michael Riley's situation. The team in BC wasn't very good. He was kind of keeping them afloat, and they were destroying his body in a way because of all the hits he was taking. But yeah, you saw a quarterback that you always give the benefit to because it's Michael Riley, it's Bo Levi Mitchell, right? But then you notice physically there's limitations. I don't
Absolutely.
think I don't think Bo Levi Mitchell's issues are anything but physical limitations. He is just not the same quarterback. I said once he's alluded to the idea of I got to think about whether I'm going to play because I don't know how my body is right now. That gives you a good indication on where he is at as a player and as a quarterback. And I think this season you're starting to see the confidence isn't there for him. He had that big blow up after the Ottawa game that they won, but he called out the team for not having a good performance. And I'm like, well, you come out the following week, you throw an 80-yard pass on the first play, and then pretty much not much else after that, and you get pulled.
Yeah.
So,
Mm, yeah, I hear you. Well, we wish him all the best. I mean, nobody
definitely.
nobody wants to see Bo Levi Mitchell not be the great quarterback that we all know he is and was and can be. Nobody wants to see that. But, the writing sometimes on the wall is on the wall. Sometimes all we can do as people who are watching the games is read it. That's where we're left. So there are some flags there that are hinting that maybe the more success that Mayer has, does Bo Levi get traded? Is that an option? Does he want to be traded? Does he want to not be a Calgary Stampeder? There's a lot of pride in being a Calgary Stampeder for Bo Levi Mitchell. I can't see anything otherwise. And
Yeah.
and he's a fan favorite, and of course, fans can be fickle. We saw it happen to Ray in Edmonton. We've seen other quarterbacks that have left teams that they were good with, and it just didn't work out. Well, that's 31-29 Calgary over Winnipeg. The next game we'll talk to
Winnipeg
David.
over Calgary.
Sorry, Winnipeg over Calgary. Thanks, buddy. Toronto 37-20. Not if you were going into the third quarter would you have thought that was the case.
We watching that third quarter, I was like, where did this come from? And you know what? For the fans that were in attendance, they loved it because there's only one team they care about beating more than any other, and that's Hamilton. Especially when there were a lot of Hamilton fans there who were quite happy.
Not as many as usual.
No,
And the reason I mention that, I want to slide this in just very subtly. There were 15,000 people there.
there were. I didn't get the attendance right away. I think to Mike Hogan for putting that out because we
Yes,
didn't
thank
get
you,
it.
Mike.
Let's not forget this is the third game between these two teams. There's something called the Labor Day Classic coming up on Monday. The CNE, as great of an atmosphere as it provides, and yeah, you get to go to the fairgrounds after. If you're coming all the way from Hamilton, if you came all the way from Hamilton for that game, I applaud you because just for me,
Ah,
the first now it wasn't too bad because this was a Friday. I got there early, but the Saturday,
you're, talk-
oh boy,
you're talking the
oh
previous
boy,
week, right? So
there are a lot of fans there, I think, that were turned off by the fact that it was so busy. The GO train was probably the best way to get there, but even the GO train was busy. Because guess what? Jay's game on the same night.
yeah,
It was packed. You and I saw the GO train coming home, leaving.
absolutely.
It was packed,
Yep.
right? So, yeah, I'm sure there are fans.
You know what I liked? What I liked, David, I liked seeing that what might have been around 800-900 fans against the fence and standing on the stairs at the food building. One of them was Eduardo calling us while we were trying to do our interview. In the middle of the coach doing his thing, we get I
Wow,
get a
yeah,
phone call.
call out the guy who's
Oh,
running
we're at
the
the
whole
food
network on the show.
building. Yeah, no, it's it was a great atmosphere. I always like the games during the X because there's something going on outside too, right? And when you hear the cheers, you can see, especially the food building, when the big cheers came out, you see people stop. They were walking, and of course they'd automatically look towards the football field, which you can see from the walkway there, and so it's always an interesting experience to see the rides and to see the people walking around and to have a game like that in the middle of a giant crowd. So you could say there were like 35, 40, 50,000 people near the game. They
Yeah,
were,
no, for sure. And look,
they were near the game.
and people are probably wondering, oh, why weren't there more people? Well, there's a Jays game happening at the same time. They're getting over 40,000 at their games. That's that's a good. And they say, oh,
This was the week to celebrate the 93 Jays.
yeah, the 92 Jays.
And wasn't it 93 too?
No, 92 because it's the 30-year anniversary. But when I think about it, you know, I'm looking at how this game was entertainment value in the second half. The first half one is I heard some people left during the first half, which look, if you're going to a sporting event and you're leaving after one half and you complain about your experience, I said, well, it's like leaving a movie early. You didn't get to watch the whole movie. You didn't get to watch the whole game. How can you comment on half a game? It's like when you have I'm trying to think of a food item. Help me out here, Frank. What's something that you would have maybe half of, maybe you're not too thrilled about? Okay, a pizza. All right, you start with the first half of the pizza. I'm not really feeling it. You haven't even gone to the best part yet. Getting to the end, you have that crust, all that crunchiness. You're not going to get the full experience by only enjoying half.
Well, I think I think the biggest point is you don't know what's going to happen, and you talk about a movie, whether it's food, a movie, or just the football game. The predictability of a game is non-existent. As soon as you think it's predictable, and then something happens, you just missed a great moment. Because that's just what it is. When things are, look at it from the perspective of the Argo fans. Let's look at, because it was their home game. The fans are frustrated. The team's not playing well. They're doing the things they've done before that the fans don't like, and that is not score when the opportunity arises. A defense that doesn't seem to be able to stop anything, and you give up on the team, and you figure, well, that was a lousy game, and you walk away. And for the people who stayed, they saw one of the best games the Argos played defensively, for sure, defensively.
Yeah.
One of the best games that Peters has ever played. He hasn't ever. He can't remember the last time he had 3 interceptions. So it was a pretty big game for him too.
Yeah, Peters had a great game. You saw the offense actually score touchdowns.
Yep.
That's a good thing. Um, Hamilton made it competitive. This wasn't a game that was one sided. In the first half, it was a very competitive game. Hamilton looked like they could have pulled away a little bit there. They just couldn't get that done. And I mean, if you're an Argos fan, that's you're hoping that this is a game that spark something. The Argos have had a game like this. They win, and next week it's a loss. They
Do you know
win.
what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, they win, and it's a loss. Okay, now you can go.
Okay, so what I was going to say is that from a Cat fan perspective, can we keep a quarterback healthy? This is an organization that has been snake bit when it comes to health. Mazzoli, right? Evans, and then it really hurt when Schultz got hurt, when his hand got hurt. Because once again, we've seen this movie before. We've seen this movie where Hamilton has basically their foot on the throat of well, maybe I shouldn't use that term. Anyway, that they had a victory in their clutches. It was a win that they were going to have, right? It was just all they had to do was keep doing what they were doing and be a little consistent. The defense be a little efficient. The quarterback and the offense, keep piling on the minutes of possession, right? And then maybe score a touchdown here or there. And they had it. It was their game to win. And we've seen this how many times in the past 2 years alone? Just the past 2 years. How many times have we seen a game where Hamilton looked like they were going to win, they were cooled out, everything was awesome. And then an injury happens. This is the thing about Hamilton, that if I'm a Hamilton fan, which I can put myself in because I really enjoy the games when Hamilton and Toronto play. But as a Hamilton fan, that's got to really hurt that they can't stay healthy. I mean, their record would be totally different if they were healthy, if they could stay healthy over the past few years. That Grey Cup injuries.
I think there's a lot of fans that are very disappointed because this was supposed to be maybe we can turn things around. Maybe we make some moves, we get rid of some players that maybe weren't able to get the job done, and it's worse. Now they've had some tough injuries.
They're in a rebuilding year.
Yeah, you talked with the quarterbacks being injured. Simone Lawrence, they're a totally different team when Simone Lawrence plays. So I do think that Hamilton at his best, you would hope that they're a more competitive team, but we were seeing these signs for a little bit, right? When they won that East final against Toronto, their offense was only good when Toronto was giving them those opportunities in the second half to really take the game over. And it took a quarterback change in that game to get them going as well.
Absolutely.
And I just think that, this season is further proof that Hamilton needs to do a little more deep search, really some reflection on, are they going in the right direction? Especially on offense. They got some good weapons there. It's just, are they getting the most out of them? Matthew Schultz, I know you're a big fan of his. I think he makes that offense better, but he's also somebody that doesn't have the experience, and now health is a question. He had a right hand injury, and I think that happened on a sack that it happened on. Yeah. But injuries happen. Hamilton went to the season knowing they needed two capable quarterbacks. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, that's not Matthew Schultz going out there. That's not even Dane Evans going out there. They threw out their third string quarterback, who wasn't even their third string quarterback normally, because their third string quarterback wasn't even healthy and was on the injured list.
Like I said, injuries have been a factor with that team, and it makes one, if for the Argos, that's me knocking on wood. And the reason I'm knocking on wood is, here are the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who had 3 number 1 quarterbacks in the past couple of years. 3 number 1 quarterbacks. And I'm talking about 3 number 1 quarterbacks. And none of them can stay healthy. Neither of them can stay healthy.
Well, remember Zach Collaros.
The Argos have 1 number 1 quarterback. I'm knocking on wood. It's amazing. If there's one thing that people don't talk about when it comes to McLeod, Bethel, Thompson, Macbeth, as we call him, his ability to stay healthy under the conditions that he ends up being mauled by opposing defensive linemen, the sacks that he has taken have been pretty brutal. But he has been a guy who has jumped up and play on. He hasn't even, if you're an Argo fan, knock on wood, he hasn't even been dented. And I'm telling you, he's taken hits that have more than dented other quarterbacks. And that's one quality about McLeod Bethel Thompson that I think we should talk about today, and we should recognize in that player because I'm critical of him sometimes. The red zone thing and the fact that he comes up with all these great numbers, and you ask yourself, how can a quarterback that has this kind of record not win big games? Right? He's had opportunities to win big games, and he hasn't. Are they coming? It's quite possible. Is the reason why he has such great numbers because he has an organization that puts a lot of great receivers out there for him? There's some of that's true too, right, David? Because over the past few years, at least since McLeod's been here, there have been some good receivers that the Argos have thrown out there.
No, there have been. And I've been critical of McLeod Bethel Thompson too. He's not the worst quarterback in the league, but he's not a great quarterback either. He's in that kind of middle tier. And look, he even said it after the game. I'm a 500 quarterback right now. Right when we talked about the stats, well, he's fourth. He passed Doug Flutie on the all-time list. But for him, it's like that's a great accomplishment. It's something I'll look back on. But he's like, I'm a 500 quarterback right now. He understand the mindset. He definitely understands it. It just doesn't really translate to the field sometimes. But and look, anybody who's kind of talking about the Doug Flutie stuff, Doug Flutie did that in 2 years. McLeod Bethel Thompson's been here since 2018. He's been playing, and he's
Even
played
Ray wasn't here that long either.
Yeah, he hasn't been here forever too, right? Not like Ricky Ray, who was a starter right as soon as he came.
To 2017, right? From
Yeah.
2012.
2000, well, a little bit into 2018 until the season came to an end.
Well, yeah.
So McLeod Bethel Thompson, I will say this: he has had his opportunities. It's not like they haven't given him a fair shot because the last 2 years it has been his. He's
earned twice. He's overcome quarterbacks Arbuckle, Franklin, who were deemed the number one quarterback, and he took the job away from them with his ability to convince the quarterback coach and, of course, in this case, the head coach, that he's the guy.
Yes.
And you know what? What it's going to take is what it takes every athlete in sports. Every athlete who achieves greatness statistically, right? That greatness is always mitigated really hard by how many championships have you won? How many playoff games have you won? Mm-hmm. Right? It gets mitigated by that. A player's greatness is not measured by his statistics. His statistics are what highlight what he should be. Not what he is, but what he should be. He should be a champion. If he's that good and he has those kinds of numbers, he should be a champion. I always refer back to Marcel Dion, one of the greatest players in hockey ever, never won a Stanley Cup. And there's a lot of other players in that category.
Hey, Dan Marino.
There you go. You want to talk?
Yeah, I got a whole list of guys that have never won. But should
absolutely, and it's so true.
It's hard to win.
Absolutely, and it's funny, but David, you got to admit too that it's not like they got to win 10 championships. They don't all have to be Brady. They win a championship or two, and that's it. They are, their statistics now mean something because they won a championship.
This is true. And even for the players, that's what they aim for. That's everything that they want.
And if you ask a player, and if you think they're not telling the truth, if you ask a player, are you willing to trade your all-star success, your statistical success? Would you trade it for a championship? I don't think there's a heartbeat in between them saying yes. And folks, they mean it, because that trophy is everything. Being the best, on the best team is something that is really, it's fantastic, and it's something every player looks forward to. So this game featured a Hamilton team that looked going into the second half like they were they were going to win this game. They had some issues. They overcame those issues. Their defense did some great work. Their offense was marching up and down the field at will. And what happened? Well, Peters intercepts the ball 3 times. McLeod Bethel Thompson finds the end zone on a cross pattern in the end zone. Um, the Argos did what, and the team is well aware of it. The Argos did what they've done for a very long time now. They've not played a complete game. They've had incomplete losses and incomplete victories. This was an incomplete victory, and I hope you know what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. An incomplete game victory. This wasn't an incomplete game loss. They have not played a complete game. McLeod told us that in the interview. Basically said we haven't played a complete game. Even their defensive guys that we had on the air or that met us after the game have said the same thing. Is this team capable of playing a complete game?
Oh, defensively, yes. Offensively, I'm not too sure. Offensively, it just seems like it's the same as last year, and I can't see it, especially against a really good team like Hamilton. They're a tough team, but they're not a good team. The record indicates that they're not a good team. Hate to
Hard
say
luck.
it,
Not a good team.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But against a good team, we've seen how this Argos team, slow starts can be their backbreaker. That's just what they are as a team, and they have to find a way to overcome it for sure. They can't just say, "Oh, this is who we are. We have to live with it." Well, no, you got to figure out a way to get around, get by it. But I think when you look at the identity of this Argos team, yeah, offensively, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that. At least trying to put up some points on the board. Like they only put up 10 points in that first half. And they were very lucky to get 10 points in that first half because they looked abysmal in that first half. So I'm not there yet to think that this team is convincing me enough that they're a consistent football team because their record and their play indicates to me that they aren't yet.
So the Argos win that game going away. And another game that features the second place team in the West and a team that was outside the playoffs if it wasn't for the crossover, Saskatchewan. We talked about Calgary. Those are the 3 candidates to finish in second. Right now, BC has 2 games ahead of Calgary, 2 losses, 2 wins ahead of Calgary, and they played Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan won. It won't take long for BC to lose that edge that they have in second place. And should they drop to a team like Saskatchewan, who will have a home and home series with Winnipeg because they have they have 2 games, the Banjo Bowl following the Labor Day game, and Saskatchewan's going to need to win both those games. So we've got some interesting situations here. We watched BC, an injury to a quarterback again. How important was that in this game?
It didn't help, that's for sure. I mean, Michael O'Connor wasn't lighting it up per se. He was struggling in that game. Saskatchewan still has a good defense, right? It's always been their offense that's kind of held them back. In this game, like Antonio Pipkin came in a very tough situation. I thought he did well, but there were definitely misplays in this game. That Saskatchewan was fortunate. I mean, look, Cody Fitzgerald throws for 321 yards. He has 2 touchdowns, and they only finished the game with 23 points. Like that game, Saskatchewan should have ran away with that game, but it shows the fight that BC has. Their team that their defense at times gets overlooked. You know,
Absolutely.
they got guys that can get to the quarterback. Matthew Betts, he had 2 sacks. They had how many sacks in this game? I think they had 7 sacks.
Absolutely.
7 sacks in this game. I know Saskatchewan's offensive line is not very good, but that's a heck of an effort from that BC defense to keep them in that game when the offense is down to the third option at quarterback with Rourke out, O'Connor having to leave the game. Um, I I think Saskatchewan is happy that they get that one because they needed that win. You will take the win, but I'm still not convinced. There's only I'm not seeing enough from Saskatchewan to really say that they can, like, in at this rate they're trying to catch Calgary and hope that BC keeps dropping down so that they avoid the crossover.
I think Rourke, you know, his injury was brought on by this very defensive line that BC had to deal with in this game. Saskatchewan's their biggest asset is their defensive line. The ends, the rush ends are murder. And physically they're punishing. They can really punish, a quarterback. Now, the punishment that they give, they can do it very well in one game. But can you imagine if they were a hockey team and playing in a playoff series, that kind of team, they would wear the opposition down. Be grateful you don't play them that often because this team is very physical. Their rush ends, and when I'm referring physical on the running backs and physical on the quarterback. So they grind your offense into the ground. And O'Connor, this had to be a real tough start for him, if you know what I mean, because the challenge of playing against this team, having the ball, wrapping your head around the fact that you're the starter, and then have to dodge the bullets that are being, thrown at you. He did a pretty good job considering. And how I feel very highly about Antonio Pipkin, and him, another guy who probably doesn't get that many reps in practice. He basically probably threw more balls in the game than he's thrown in practice. So, I like this kid, and I think he can be someone that can help BC hang on to second place, because essentially, I think we both agree, David, that's what's going to happen with BC. For them to finish in second this season, they're going to have to hang on. Their defense is going to have to be very good, and their offense is going to have to provide enough offense that the defense can out-defend the other team.
Yeah, you have to give your defense a chance, right? Usually, if you hold a team to 23 points, like if BC's defense, you're in a good spot. I think Saskatchewan's defense definitely also helped their offense out in a big way.
Absolutely. The last game was Ottawa and Edmonton, the tale of the cabooses. The two teams that just right now they're trying to find their game. Last week, Edmonton looked like they found their game. This week, Ottawa looks like they found their game. And those two games are basically the definition of those two teams. Unable to consistently win. But they generated some offense. Their defenses looked okay. How else would you describe the game in those two teams in the couple of minutes we have left?
I just think that this is a game of two teams that fortunately are at the bottom of the CFL for a reason. I will say, I talked about that there was another good catch from this weekend. Kenny Lawler,
Yep.
catch of the year in my opinion. If it wasn't for Kenny Lawler, I don't know that Edmonton team might have. I don't know how you beat Ottawa like they did last week, only to lose at home again. Again, it's got to be you know what? Sometimes I talk to Argos fans after the game. They talk about how frustrated they can be with this team. I said, go look at what Edmonton's dealing with right now. They can't even. They it's almost a guaranteed loss at this point.
Yeah.
Taylor Cornelius, though, big letdown performance in my opinion.
Combination of Cornelius and Lawler, more than half the offense, at least receiving offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got to be spread out a little more than that.
Yeah, I mean Kenny Lawler. Yeah, Kenny Lawler was their big target. I know that they're dealing with injuries as well. I'll give them that. But yeah, this is both of these teams, in my opinion, are still going nowhere. Maybe Nick Archibald comes in and he can try to will this team to around the third place conversation if they get on a bit of a roll. But I'm not holding my breath.
Ottawa 25, Edmonton 18. That's it for this week. We're going to leave it there. Thanks for this, David.
Thank you, Frank.
He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk Aaron Live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it here, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.